Today is probably going to stay with me for quite a long time, because today I am test driving that car behind me and I'm just realizing that this probably wasn't the perfect setting to film it, especially since it's black, but we'll get to that later on. So today I am test driving for the first time in my life a Hyundai Ioniq car, because there are a number of them now. You have the Ioniq 5, we have the Ioniq 6 over here, and there are more coming. So I've been waiting for this moment for quite some time, because I've only been hearing great things about this car in particular. And today I'm going to tell you why it probably is the best electric car I've driven ever. What you're looking at here, it could be described as the flag bearer for Hyundai models. This is the Ioniq 6, and it is absolutely impressive in every way. Well, there are some nibbles I don't really like, but we'll get to that when we hop inside the car. But for starters, let's talk about what this car represents. It is, right now, the pinnacle of South Korean electric cars, in my book at least. This is a sedan, if you will, with a sloping roofline towards the back, and that was done specifically to create a very good drag coefficient. It is a car meant to alleviate any sort of range anxiety you might have. It was created to be the perfect electric car, and so far I have not driven a better electric car in terms of efficiency and charging and everything else that has a lot of people worried in this regard. This car is simply the best. So what are we talking about here exactly? This is the long range version, because we have different versions of the Ioniq 6. We have some with all-wheel drive, with different sizes in terms of battery, but this one is the long range version. That means it has a 77 kilowatt hour battery, out of which you can use 74 kilowatt hours. And you also have one single motor on the rear axle that has 229 horsepower and 350 Newton meters of torque. It is not a car like many other electric cars focused on 0 to 60 times or crazy acceleration figures of any way. Nothing like that. This is a car meant for the customer that wants a very efficient, easy to use model. And this car has a range quoted by Hyundai for 495 kilometers, just under 500. Well, I managed to squeeze over 550 kilometers of range out of this car in a terribly busy city yesterday. And right now we came over here on a series of B roads to enjoy the view and see what kind of range we should be getting out of this car in these conditions. And so far, the electric consumption is under 12 kilowatt hours. But we're gonna keep driving and see what kind of results we get at the end. But let's talk about it for a second. Let's talk about its design. So as you can probably tell, I call it the Dolphin because it looks like a dolphin from the side, if you ask me. It's not a bad looking car, I have to say. In person, it does look pretty good. I think the only exception would be the rear end, which does resemble the Porsche 911 ducktail to some extent. But other than that, I think it is a great looking car. I don't mind it at all. I understand why it has to have this shape. It is to make it as aerodynamic as possible, and it does have a drag coefficient of 0.21. We have the 18-inch wheels on this car. You can get 20-inch wheels as well, but I don't think you actually need them. They will ruin some of the comfort of this car. They will ruin the suspension. So I also like this pixelated design for various lighting elements around the car. For example, over here at the back we have this light bar composed from individual LEDs, just like you would see in the ADs, and I absolutely love it. We've seen the same approach on the Ioniq 6 or Ioniq 5, sorry about that. We also have it over here. This is a brake light, and it looks absolutely brilliant. It's the third brake light, and I actually like the way this car looks. And over here we have the fog lights and reversing lights. So yeah, quite impressive in terms of design, if you ask me. And I actually like the way this boot opens, but it's not exactly the biggest boot you've ever seen. Only 400 liters of space, so roughly the size of a compact hatchback. So this is a minus for the Ioniq 6, but I don't think it's a decisive one. It depends on what you are planning to do with your car. If you're planning to do long road trips with your family, that might be an issue. Now, in terms of size, this is a D segment car, almost close to an E segment car. It has 4.85 meters in length and a wheelbase of close to 3 meters. So inside you will find plenty of room even for the tallest people out there. Now, there is a mention I have to make though regarding the room inside this car. That's the roof line. Now, since this car was built to be as aerodynamic as possible, and it does have this shape for the roof line, people that are on the taller side of things might have an issue in terms of headroom. Let me explain. I'm 6 feet tall, and yeah, I don't really fit in here. I have to slide down in order to have more room. So I'm not sitting upright, I'm sitting a bit further down. I don't know if you can tell, right? So normally I would sit like this, but in this case I have to slide down. Now, that's not exactly a huge issue, except when you're going for longer trips, because your back might start to hurt. But in terms of leg room, well, you have lots of it. No matter how you sit, there is a lot of legroom. We don't have a transmission tunnel, the floor is flat, so plenty of room to do all sorts of things over here in the back. Now, another criticism I have is the build quality and the material quality. Now, this is plastic, it's the same up front, and it doesn't exactly feel really nice to the touch. Over here, I mean, I wouldn't have minded if this was the only bit of cheap plastic in the car, but this area over here where you will be making contact with the car quite often, the armrest should have been done in a different material. Now, that's something that won't change no matter what trim level you go for. So it's something you might want to keep in mind. We also have heated seats in the back in this entry-level trim. Very small door pockets, yet another practicality issue. And we have the same pixelated design over here for the rear speaker. And this is the dashboard. Quite simple. And notice that bluish hue on the door cards. Those are LED lights, and they do look great whenever you see them at night. But there are some issues up front as well, and I'm going to tell you all about them. For example, the plastic used over here is also quite bad. Now, this is a soft touch material. I don't know exactly what it is. I am guessing synthetic leather. It does feel nicer to the touch, but that's about it. The same pixelated design can be spotted here for the door card speaker cover, but we don't have the window regulators over here. We have them on the center console. This car being a premium package model, it does have textile seats, and only the driver's seat is adjustable electrically. The passenger seat is adjustable manually. And this is the steering wheel. I have no quarrel with the steering wheel. We have the new Hyundai logo over here, the 4 dots signifying the Morse code for the letter H, and everything looks rather okay inside. Now, as I said, this is where the window regulators are, the auto hold button, lock and unlock for the car, and this is the key fob. Quite big, to be honest, and if you don't have keyless access, you will have to use that key a lot. And another complaint I have is the fact that you can only use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with a wire. This is the climate control zone area, and this is the infotainment system. We've seen it on a number of Hyundai Kia cars, so it works flawlessly, but it does seem to have fallen back. For example, when you enter the navigation menu, for example, you want to see the map, well, it doesn't exactly work brilliantly, okay? So it could have been done better. There are many new electric cars that do it better. But then again, you look at this. This is the electric consumption I've gotten so far. I did 38 kilometers out of the city, and this is the energy consumption. Considering the battery has a 74 kilowatt hour battery, you're getting close to 700 kilometers of range, which is absolutely amazing. And that's not all. The car actually drives really well, and we're gonna finish this fuel energy consumption test right now, and then we're going to summarize what we've learned about this car in the past 3 days. And let me tell you something, it is an impressive package overall. As promised, we are now on the highway. We've been doing an extended range test, as I usually do over here on my channel. If you're not familiar with the format, you should probably subscribe, because I did a ton of these tests, both around town, on a series of B roads, and then on the highway, to see how electric cars compare and how they perform. And I've driven tens of them. I used to have a spreadsheet with all the results, but somehow I lost it. So I have to say that the Ioniq 6 is incredibly impressive. As I already mentioned, I got about 550 kilometers of range around town, and that's even though Hyundai says that this car should have a range of about 495. So with an energy consumption of 13.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered, I was simply blown away, considering that the average speed was around under 20 kilometers an hour, so it was pretty heavy traffic. Then we hopped on a B road. The average energy consumption was under 12 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered, and that impressed me as well, because considering the car has a battery with a usable capacity of 74 kilowatt hours, you should probably get over 640 kilometers of range at that pace, which is at an average speed of about 70 kilometers an hour. Once again, very impressed. And now we're on the highway. I kept the car at 130 kilometers an hour, which is the legal top speed over here in Romania. But I know that in certain other countries around Europe, the top speed on the highway is 120 kilometers an hour. So you might be getting even better results. But right now the car is indicating 19.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered, and that means you should probably get close to 400 kilometers on the highway at this speed with a full battery. So plenty to go around for longer trips, if you will, because this car is not just efficient, and that efficiency has a lot to do with the shape. As I already told you, this car has a drag coefficient of 0.21, which is one of the best in the industry. But this car also has very fast charging, so it uses an 800 volt platform underneath it all. It's called eGMP. All the electric cars, the new electric cars from Hyundai and Kia, use this platform. We're talking about cars like the Kia EV9, the EV6, the EV3, or the Hyundai Ioniq 6, Ioniq 5, and more to come. So all cars are using this platform. It's a modular platform. It's a skateboard type platform, and it is built at the new standard in the electric car business, 800 volts. What does that mean? Actually, it means that you can get faster charging times, you can get actually smaller, shorter charging times, and bigger powers to go with that. You have a lighter construction overall, you need less cables and so on, and the car has better regen. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I think I got such great results around town, because I learned over time that you should actually use these cars, the electric cars, with the maximum regen turned on, because that's their main advantage compared to regular internal combustion engine cars. Namely, the fact that yes, you do use up energy when you set off, but then when you slow down, you can recuperate a lot of that energy back into the battery, and this way you can keep the energy consumption at a minimum. And I noticed that by doing comparisons between cars. For example, before this car, I had the Nissan Ariya for testing purposes. And the Ariya is a brilliant car, don't get me wrong. It also uses a dedicated platform and so on. But it doesn't have a 800 volt platform. And that means the regenerative power is a lot smaller. And that means you will recuperate less energy. And I used it without the maximum regenerative brakes turned on, and it showed because it had roughly twice an energy consumption roughly twice as high compared to this car. So the range was affected drastically. I had an average energy consumption of around 26 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered with the Ariya, right? So quite a huge difference overall, and I think the 800 volt platform is a must today in the industry if you want to be taken seriously as an EV manufacturer. But leaving these technical details aside for a moment, let's talk about how it is to live with this car day to day. So far, I have praised it a lot because I did like my experience with it. So it's very comfortable. The suspension, even though it's not a adaptive suspension or an air suspension, is incredibly comfortable. It soaks up the bumps brilliantly. It levels up everything that comes your way, and I cannot complain about it at all. Furthermore, we have a rear-wheel drive setup on this car. It's not the most powerful Ioniq 6 you can get, but it is the most efficient. And you have 350 Newton meters of torque disposable at your disposal instantly. So the car does feel quite lively, but it's not exactly a rocket ship. It doesn't have to be. Most cars on the road are not rocket ships. For example, this car will do 100 kilometers an hour in 7.4 seconds, which is more than decent for anyone out there. For any need you might have, it's enough. The top speed is rated at 185 kilometers an hour. So once again, enough to get you in trouble, in big trouble in a lot of states. And by the way, we're on the highway right now. The car is set on autopilot, and it has what Hyundai Kia calls highway driving assist. Basically, the car can help you change lanes if you wanted to. We have that technology that shows you the blind spot in your the car's blind spot in the instrument cluster whenever you signal. I don't really like this technology. I think it's too much. It's distracting. I can check out the car's surroundings myself, but I'm starting to get used to this highway driving assistant tech. Right now the car is changing lanes on its own, and it's doing a pretty good job. All you have to do is keep your hands on the steering wheel, and if you want to change lanes, just signal and the car will change lanes for you, but you do have to keep your hands on the steering wheel. And probably more important than that, you have to let the car do the operation itself, because if you intervene, I mean, if you hold the steering wheel too tight, or if you want to turn yourself, the function will be cancelled. The car will let you do the maneuver yourself. Now, getting back to the way this car drives, absolutely comfortable, very quiet, and I think this shape helps out in that regard a lot. But I would have liked a number of things. For example, I would have liked a tighter turning radius. Now, this is not a small car. From the outside, you might be confused, just like it happens with the Ioniq 5. The Ioniq 5 seems like a small car in pictures and in videos, but it's not. It's actually quite a big car overall. The same goes with this one. This car is an E-segment car, so it has a 4.85 meter length in total, as I already told you. So it's quite big, so finding parking spaces might be a bit tricky. And the turning radius is not exactly great, as I said, so you might be caught up in some extra turns whenever you are, I don't know, doing a J-turn or 3-point turn or something like that, or whenever you're parking it might take a few extra moves. But that's something you have to be aware of whenever you're looking at a car of this size. But overall, around town, for example, I found this car to be very relaxing. I found it to be incredibly enjoyable to drive, even on a series of twisty roads. It's not incredibly fast, but it is fun to drive, and I was impressed by the lateral grip grip of the car. And I wouldn't go for the 20-inch rims. I think the 18-inch ones we have on this car that are also aerodynamically optimized and so on are enough for most people, and they will not ruin the ride. Other criticisms include this infotainment system. As I said, it's not bad, but it could have been a lot better. The fact that you have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with a wire for now, I'm hoping that the facelift will bring a wireless connection. It does fix a lot of the issues I have with it. And overall, if you're looking for a car that's first of all efficient, second of all charges fast, and third of all offers incredible range, I think this might be the perfect car for you. It does have some drawbacks, as I said. Oh, another one I have to mention is the brake pedal. Most of the time I used iPedal, which is like the maximum regenerative braking system. But from time to time you do have to touch the brake pedal. And it is incredibly sensitive, so it's not to my liking. My girlfriend actually told me, we've been driving around in this car for a while, and she told me, babe, don't be upset, but you suck at driving when you're driving this car. Normally she likes my driving, but in this car, yes, the pedal, the brake pedal, you have to get adjusted with it. You have to be careful with it because it's very incisive in the initial part of the pedal travel. So yeah, that's something I wanted to point out as well. But overall, I am incredibly impressed with this car. I am even more impressed by the pricing it has. So it will depend on the market you're in. Over here, this exact version, the one with the 77 kilowatt hour battery, usable 74, with the rear engine, this premium package, which is good enough in terms of configuration, costs 42,000 euros, and that is Model 3 and Model Y territory. And I think this is a better car than both of those. It's not an SUV though. That's why the Model Y is the best-selling car worldwide right now, because everybody wants a C-segment SUV. But I don't think you need an SUV, and if you can live with its shortcomings, I think this is an incredible machine overall. I would like to know what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, don't forget, of course, to like, share, and subscribe to keep this channel alive. Ciao.